Okay. So, brief summary. I read Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, published by Scholastic Press in September 1st, 2009. It is a book about, it's a trilogy about this girl who lives in like a world where there's 12 districts and they all have to fight each other because for food and stuff. Okay, so my first question is how does work use imagery to represent symbols? In the book, Suzanne Collins writes, I can almost see the hands ticking around the 12-second face of the arena. Each hour begins a new horror. In the book, there's like, in the games, there's this, the arena is like a clock, and every like hour, this horrible thing happened. Like there was this huge like fog that like was really poisonous, and it was like horrible, and it started killing people, and that's how a bunch of people died. And she uses this, Suzanne Collins uses this really well because she describes things and how terrified Katniss is and Peeta is by these things that you wouldn't be able to comprehend unless you understood it like a clock. So there was no other way to understand that. The next one is, how does irony work in the text? This is not only like a formalist question, it's kind of also like a social class kind of question, but I like to think of it as a formalist question in the way that Suzanne Collins writes, I mourn my own life. Here we barely scrape by, but I knew where I fit in. I knew what my place was in the tightly interwoven fabric. So technically, the narrator, Katniss, is trying to say is that she's probably like the least person that would probably have played the games in the first place. Like, out of all the people in all the districts, they chose her, like one of the poorest, like worst living people in District 12, and she was the one who had to go into the Hunger Games and fight for her life. It's kind of ironic because like you would have never thought, you know, she was like here taking care of her family, being really poor, and then now she has to fight for her life, and now that she killed 11 other people and with Peeta saved their own district, it's like kind of ironic because out of all the people, she was the one to like ruin everything and bring hope to all the other districts. My next question is, what patterns exist between the structure of the writing to the time when it was written? This is a structural criticism question, and I wrote about, the quote that I chose was, but there was only one kiss that made me feel something stir deep inside, only one that made me want more. Like, we're in the age a lot where it's like, this is a book for like kids, not kids, but like young teens and stuff like that. So it's really common for like authors to write about love and like kissing because it's like so like grown up or whatever. So this is like very much intact with the age that we live in now, because right now we like to read about romanticism and like things that are like romantic, like kissing and stuff like that. And obviously Candace feels like really strongly romantic by this kiss, and it just like intrigues people. So it has a lot to do with how teenagers feel nowadays. My next question is also structural criticism. It's what rules or codes of interpretation must be internalized in order to make sense of the text. Okay, for this one, there's a quote in the book that's, well, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit because it's a part of like a really big quote. It's, I'm selfish, I'm a coward, and then Candace continues on to say something like, if something were to happen, I'd be the one to leave everyone behind that was with me in the group and let them die while I save myself. I would run and fend for myself against the people who can't fend for themselves. So it's like in order to understand the way she wrote it, Suzanne Collins writes like the event that happened, then the action, then what's going to happen, and then she writes like Candace's point of view on like everything, because obviously Candace is like narrating, but Candace will be like, and then I fought, and then I was scared, and then these people died, and this is how I felt while I was doing all of this. So you have to like really like read the entire book in order to understand all of these. And then she uses this to like be like so what would be, she has like her own structure. Like it's not just the way the author writes it, but it's also the way Katniss thinks about it. Okay, and then there's one last question that I chose that was extra psychoanalytical question. It's, what does the work suggest about the psychological being of its author? Okay, so I thought this was interesting because the whole book expresses how much like Suzanne, I think it expresses how much Suzanne Collins like has going on in her mind, because she like writes, the trouble is I don't know exactly what I was going to do inside. Oh, what was going on inside of me at the moment. So she like says all this stuff. It's like, okay, Suzanne Collins, what are you really trying to say about yourself? No, but like she writes about a lot of pain and about a lot of poverty and about a lot of struggle, which is like really what we experience nowadays in the world, with struggle and like poverty and like people starving and people having to like go to extreme things to get what they need for daily necessities. And then she kind of puts that all into like a perspective, and in a way like you can like foretell that the last book in the trilogy is going to be about rebellion, because it's like everyone's going against like the rich people, and then all the poor people are gonna somehow like come through and like be awesome again and stuff like that. So that's my project.